So how do you think the offense is different? If they're going to try to play to Dillon Gabriel's strength, with Kevin Stefanski said you always try to do that. How is this offense different with Gabriel and Flacco?
One thing I think we saw them try a little bit early and then it kind of went away after they realized that Flacco's physical limitations in terms of his mobility was even worse than they expected is some of that boot action. Like I always talk about the things I talked all offseason about some of the things I loved about them returning to the Kevin Stefanski offense being the misdirection and kind of trying to confuse and deceive defenders. And that boot action where everybody gets moving left and then the quarterback moves back right and you get like little dump off passes, or it can be to the other side. Still, Gabriel's left-handed, so it might be a little bit different. They might run it a little bit differently. But then you get everybody moving one way and you clear it out for a 5-10 yard gain, things like that. I think you'll see a lot more of those situations. Probably some RPO game will get mixed in there as well. And then I think one big thing we've seen them do to try to help DTR last year and the year before was moving the pocket. So immediately in the shotgun, taking the snap, move the pocket, get them on the move. Yeah, it kind of cuts up half the field, but it kind of buys you a little bit of extra time. So seeing them really play to his mobility and athleticism, and I think you'll see maybe some design quarterback runs mixed in there. That's the biggest difference between him and Flacco is in just physically speaking, is his ability to move. And I do think they'll try to capitalize on that difference.
Is that the biggest strength you think they need to capitalize on? Is his mobility, given some of the limitations? No matter what you do at tackle, it's still going to be, if you get to average, that's a huge jump.
Yeah, and that's been part of the reason I was kind of hoping that they would mix in some Dillon Gabriel like packages the last couple of weeks is like, yeah, I know that like anybody behind this offensive line is going to struggle, but part of the struggle is that you've seen opportunities where Joe Flacco has started to bail the pocket or he's ran up like he was going to run for a first down, and then he just can't. Once he starts moving, he'll get chased down easily, or he just doesn't have it physically to heave it down the field. So I do think that's the biggest thing they're going to lean into in terms of difference. Yeah, he's really decisive. I love the way he reads defenses and he always has answers and he's just really smart player. They've told us that all summer. It shows up on his tape. It's what Will Stein at Oregon, the OC, said that they loved the most about him was his dedication and the football IQ. But yeah, that's the biggest difference because I think the offensive line was a bigger issue than quarterback play was, but I do think in this case, the quarterback play can sort of help the offensive line, especially if they can get Cam Robinson out there quickly and potentially Jack Conklin back.
So, who are some of the guys that need to step up offensively in order to kind of help Dillon Gabriel?
I think the first one was Jerry Jeudy. It's been a rough start for Jerry Jeudy. Coming off of a big year, I thought he had a great camp. He was another guy I was super excited for. I was like, well, maybe if they can get league average quarterback play, like he could go for 1,500 yards. And he's been dropping. He always has drop issues, but the one interception, he just falls down, and then the defender's able to make the interception. I don't completely put that on Joe Flacco in that situation. He was really hard on himself. If you watch that post game presser after the game, which you kind of like to see that's kind of refreshing. He really took ownership of the struggles that he's had, but they really need him. Dillon Gabriel talked about it today about how he's still a number one wide receiver. He's his top target. That's who they want to focus on. So I think you really need him to kind of step up. And I think a guy that would really help them is Harold Fannin because Harold Fannin has just been awesome. Like what he does, I know he had that big drop that really sucked in against Detroit, but his just running through people and around people, and he's another guy that can create after the catch. So if Jerry Jeudy and Harold Fannin can step up, and then I think the offense right now has got to run through Quinshon Judkins in the running back and the run game. As bad as the offense at the passing offense has been and how it really hasn't progressed or improved, I do think the run game has. So I think Judkins can take some pressure off of him as well.
Would you? They brought in a bunch of younger offensive linemen. Would you go and try to potentially do an additional offensive lineman go unbalanced at times to try to help Flacco, to try to help Gabriel out?
Well, I was talking to Casey Kitteman, a buddy of mine, earlier this today, and we were kind of talking about that. Where I was kind of confused last week how they left Cornelius Lucas on an island with Aiden Hutchinson a lot and didn't put a lot of extra protection. I would consider rather it's an extra offensive lineman or if it's just going 2 tight ends or 3 tight ends and making sure that on every snap somebody is at least chipping or helping the right side, or assuming Cam Robinson's out there, whichever side you think is weak. Yes, I would very heavily consider having a lot of extra tight ends. And even if that's an extra offensive lineman, if you cannot get it done with 5 offensive linemen and you need to go to a 6 more often than not, I know that limits you in terms of how many people you can get out running routes. But what's limiting you even more is the fact that your quarterback doesn't even have 2.5 seconds. Like they're getting hit so quickly and they have no chance to make plays. So I'm heavily in favor of making sure whichever side, you feel is the weakest, at least giving some kind of help. They've got to give more help to these tackles because leaving them on an island against some of these premier pass rushers, and they're going to face some good pass rushers this weekend. Like you can't continue to do that and just let those guys just wreak havoc all over your offensive game plan.